Hi, my name is Selena Tu, and I'll be talking about the role overload and interpersonal stress factors in the workplace. And I'm also sick, so excuse me if my voice gets a little bit raspy throughout, but I will try my best. So, just a brief introduction to worker stress. It's defined as a physiological and/or psychological reaction to an event that's perceived to be threatening or taxing. And this can be situational, meaning that it stems from the environment, or dispositional, meaning that it comes from personal characteristics. But for me, I'll be talking about situational stress, specifically role overload and interpersonal stress. So, as for role overload, the definition is that it results from an excessive amount of output, concentration, or work speed. So, this is a type of work task stressor, which means that it comes from the actual tasks themselves instead of other roles within the job. And so for me, in the summer of 2018, I worked at a boba shop as a barista, and some of my responsibilities included taking orders, working with the cash register, managing credit cards, dealing with customers, just the typical barista job. And it's not usually considered stressful, but because of my various factors, it was personally stressful to me. So I had to take on the role of both cashier and barista because I was the only worker in the shop, and this often resulted in a slow production and long lines. And so a lot of customers complained about the wait times because my boss refused to hire more workers because she didn't want to pay more people. And so this was really stressful to me because I had to take on multiple roles to ensure that customers were satisfied with their experiences. So I would take the order, go to make the drink, come back, take more orders, make more drinks, and so on and so forth, which was extremely tiring. And so another factor is interpersonal stress, which is a type of work role stressor. This stems from difficulties in relationships with other people in the workplace. And for me specifically, it was my boss. And so this was unreasonable and critical of my boss to only hire one person. And in addition to that, she always blamed the workers for anything that they did. For example, if there was a bad Yelp review, instead of actually looking into factors of why it was like that, she would just blame the workers, like, oh, you gave me a bad Yelp review, like, look what happens, like, you didn't treat customers right. And so this was really stressful because she was inflexible to new ideas, such as, like, if I ever suggested hiring another person, she would just shut it down and say that if I couldn't do the job, then I should just quit. And so we had like a lot of low engagement with my boss, like all of the workers. We didn't really understand who she was as a person. And so there wasn't a lot of empathy there. And so the textbook findings, it defines work overload as a result of when the job requires excessive work speed, output, or concentration. And this is related to elevated cholesterol and increased heart rate. And for me, I definitely experienced this. Like, I would experience an increase in my heart rate when I had to make the drinks and take the orders at the same time because the customers were waiting on me, and their experiences with the shop were dependent on how fast I worked and the quality of my work. And so I definitely had high job dissatisfaction and dreaded coming to work every single day, praying that less people would come to the shop so that I'd be less stressed. And so, textbook findings on interpersonal stress. So, it says that having a harsh and critical boss would be stressful for just about anyone. And that because of this, workers could feel a lack of social connections and stressful sense of social isolation. And because I didn't have a good relationship with my boss because of her management style, I had nobody else working with me, and so I felt alone and that nobody else was on my side. And so a scientific journal article that I found was a modified model of pharmacists' job stress, and this had to do with the role of organizational, extra role, and individual factors on work related outcomes. And so their objective was to test whether various factors of job stress would have an impact on work related psychological outcomes. And so this was done through a survey, and after that, they assessed various pharmacists' responses with an equation. And so, because this was an experiment, the independent variables are interpersonal interactions, environmental aspects, compensation rewards, role ambiguity, role conflict, role overload, availability of acceptable jobs, and these are all the dependent variables that were affected. And so the findings were that a combination of different factors can be used in models of job stress to predict it. And so it was found that um, a greater number of connections or links that a customer has with other people in the workplace, the greater extent to which the employee is bonded to the job and the organization. And so it found that employees or management should consider investing in interpersonal aspects of the work environment by providing training in interpersonal communication, conflict resolution, and empathy to all employees. And so a few suggestions that I have on improving the workplace to put technological improvements such as a machine to insert toppings, because this often slowed me down in my job, maybe automating the cash register if there's only one person so that they can actually make the drink, or just hiring more workers to improve interpersonal relationships and reduce stress on that one worker. Better training could also be implemented to understand the recipes better, as they're quite complicated, and also train employees in facilitating communication and having empathy as well if there are multiple workers. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you for watching, and feel free to leave me any comments or questions about this, and I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you so much.